The Catharak warship appeared over New Terra like a dark moon blotting out the sun. It was massive, covered in sharp edges and dark metal that seemed to drink in the light. Inside the ship, Commander Zekthar watched the human colony below through his viewing screen. His mouth opened slightly, showing rows of teeth designed to tear through flesh and bone. "Such soft creatures," he said to his hunting pack. "Look at them. No claws, no armor, no fangs. They walk around in artificial skins and build structures from weak materials." The other Catharak warriors clicked their approval. They were 3 meters tall, covered in natural armor plating that had evolved over millions of years on their death world. Their home planet was a place where everything hunted everything else. The strong survived. The weak became food. This was the way of the universe, and the Catharak had proven it across dozens of conquered worlds. Zekthar had hunted many species. The Dalari, with their crystalline bodies. The Morphin, who could change colors. The Tresh, who could fly. All of them had fallen to the Catharak. All of them had learned that being clever or fast or different did not matter. What mattered was being a predator, and the Catharak were the greatest predators in the galaxy. "Begin the hunt," Zekthar commanded. The first drop pods fell from the sky like burning meteors. They crashed into the fields outside the main settlement of New Terra. The pods opened, and Catharak warriors emerged, their armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. They moved with purpose toward the colony. Sarah Chun was working in her garden when she heard the explosions. She looked up and saw the pods landing. Her 8-year-old daughter, Maya, was playing nearby. Sarah's husband, James, came running from the house. "Get inside," he shouted. But it was too late. The Catharak were already in the streets. They moved through the colony with terrible efficiency. They did not use their weapons to kill quickly. That was not the point. The point was the hunt. The point was the fear. The point was to show these soft creatures their place in the galaxy. Sarah grabbed Maya and ran. Behind them, she heard screaming. She heard the terrible clicking sounds the Catharak made when they were pleased. She heard laughter, if such a sound could be called laughter. They made it to the emergency shelter beneath the community center. 50 other colonists were already there. They locked the doors and waited in the darkness. Above them, the hunting continued. The Catharak broadcast everything. On their home world and across their empire, billions watched the hunt on New Terra. They watched as Catharak warriors chased down humans through the streets. They watched as families tried to hide and were found. They watched as the strong survived a few minutes longer than the weak, but all eventually fell. It was entertainment. It was sport. It was the natural order of things. Commander Zekthar personally led the hunt for the survivors in the emergency shelter. His pack found the entrance after only 2 hours. They did not break down the door immediately. Instead, they sat outside and clicked to each other, planning, making the prey wait, building the fear. This was art. When they finally opened the door, Sarah held Maya close. James stood in front of them with a mining tool, ready to fight. The Catharak found this amusing. The soft creature with no claws thought it could fight. Zekthar killed James first. Then he moved towards Sarah and Maya. But before he could reach them, alarms sounded on his armor. His second-in-command spoke urgently. "Commander, we are receiving messages from the Galactic Council. They demand we cease our activities." Zekthar laughed. "Let them demand. We are Catharak. We take what we want. There is more, Commander. The humans have sent a response to our hunting broadcast." "What do they say? Do they beg for mercy?" "No, Commander. They say nothing. The message is just silence." Zekthar found this strange, but not concerning. Silence meant acceptance. Silence meant the prey understood its place. The Catharak continued their hunt on New Terra for 3 more days. Then they moved to Proxima Haven, then to Armstrong Station. 3 colonies. Thousands of humans killed or taken as trophies. The broadcasts went across the Catharak Empire to great celebration. On Earth, the United Earth Coalition held an emergency meeting. Representatives from every nation and every off-world settlement attended. They watched the broadcasts from New Terra. They saw what the Catharak did to their people. They listened to the Galactic Council's message. The Catharak are an apex species, the Council said. They cannot be stopped. We have seen them destroy civilizations that were more advanced than humanity. We advise surrender. We advise accepting harvesting quotas. Some humans will die, but your species will survive. The room was silent after the message ended. Then Admiral Sarah Chun's father, General Marcus Chun, stood up. His daughter and granddaughter were missing on New Terra, likely dead. His voice was steady when he spoke. The Council advises surrender, he said. They tell us to let ourselves be harvested like crops. They tell us this is the natural order. He paused. I propose we show them a different kind of natural order, the kind that evolved on Earth. The vote was unanimous. Earth's response went out across all channels. Not words, just silence. But it was not the silence of acceptance. It was the silence that comes before a storm. It was the silence of something ancient and terrible waking up after a long sleep. In the military research facilities beneath the mountains of Earth, projects that had been theoretical began moving to production. Weapons that were banned by treaty were brought out of storage. Scientists who had been working on civilian projects were reassigned. The message was clear to all of them. The Catharak had made a mistake. They had looked at humanity and seen prey. They had seen creatures with no claws or fangs or armor. They had seen weakness. They had not seen the history. They had not understood what kind of planet had created humanity. They had not realized that Earth was a death world too, and that humans had survived by becoming the most dangerous predators of all. Not through strength, not through armor or natural weapons, but through something far more terrifying. Through intelligence, through creativity, through the ability to turn anything into a weapon, through the willingness to do whatever it took to survive. The Catharak thought they were beginning a hunt. They did not realize they had just made themselves the prey. Dexkar was considered unusual among his kind. While most Catharak lived for the hunt, he lived for knowledge. He was a war scholar, responsible for studying conquered species and understanding their weaknesses. It was important work, but not respected work. The other Catharak thought studying prey was beneath a true warrior. But Dexkar did not care what others thought. He had learned that knowledge was its own kind of weapon. And right now, he was trying to understand the humans. The Catharak had captured data archives from the colonies. Thousands of files containing human history, culture, biology, and technology. Dexkar sat in his study chamber aboard the fleet flagship, reviewing the information. At first, it confirmed everything the hunting packs believed. Humans were weak. Their bodies were fragile. They had thin skin that tore easily. They had no natural armor. Their teeth were flat and suited for grinding plant material, not tearing flesh. They could not run very fast. They could not see well in the dark. Perfect prey, Dexkar muttered. But something bothered him. If humans were such perfect prey, how had they survived long enough to develop space travel? He dug deeper into the files. He found records of Earth's natural history. The planet was diverse, with many different environments. But it was not particularly hostile compared to Cathar Prime. There were predators on Earth. Yes, but nothing like the mega-predators of the Catharak homeworld. So how did such weak creatures survive? Then Dexkar found the answer, and it made his blood run cold. Humans were predators. They did not look like predators, but they were. Their eyes faced forward, like all hunting species. They had evolved as pursuit predators, creatures that chased their prey for hours or even days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. They could not run fast, but they could run forever. They could not kill with claws or teeth, so they invented weapons. First rocks and sticks, then spears and arrows, then guns and bombs. Dexkar kept reading. He found human history files. He learned about human wars. The numbers shocked him. Humans had killed more of their own kind than most species had killed in total throughout their existence. The death counts from human conflicts were staggering. 60 million dead in one war. Another 40 million in a different war. Entire cities destroyed in single explosions. He found records of human weapons. Chemical weapons that destroyed the lungs. Biological weapons that spread disease. Nuclear weapons that could destroy entire planets. Weapons that humans had actually used against each other. The Catharak fought for territory and food. They killed because they were predators, and that was their nature. But humans killed for reasons Dexkar could barely understand. They killed over ideas, over religions, over resources they did not even need. They killed each other over concepts like honor and revenge and justice. Dexkar found a file labeled Extinct Species of Earth. He opened it. The list was long, very long. Hundreds of species that had once lived on Earth but no longer existed. And when he checked the causes of extinction, one reason appeared again and again: human activity. Humans had wiped out species by accident. They had hunted animals until none remained. They had destroyed habitats without thinking. They had introduced diseases and invasive species that killed native creatures. In just a few thousand years, humans had caused more extinctions than natural processes had caused in millions of years. And they had done all this while supposedly being a civilized species. Dexkar stood up and paced his chamber. He needed to report this to Commander Zekthar. The humans were not what they seemed. Yes, they were physically weak, but that was not what made a species dangerous. The Catharak had survived through strength and natural weapons. But humans had survived through intelligence and adaptability, and a willingness to do terrible things when necessary. He made his way to the command chamber. Commander Zekthar was reviewing plans for the main invasion of Earth. The fleet was preparing to depart. It would be the greatest hunt in Catharak history. They would turn Earth itself into a hunting preserve. "Commander," Dexkar said, "I need to speak with you about the humans." Zekthar did not look up from his plans. "What about them?" "We have already proven they are easy to hunt." "That is what concerns me, Commander. They were too easy. We attacked 3 colonies. We broadcast our hunts. We killed thousands of their people. And their only response was silence. Silence means fear. Silence means acceptance. Or silence means planning," Dexkar said. He activated a display showing human history files. "Commander, I have studied the humans. They are not what we thought. They are predators like us, but different. More dangerous in some ways." Zekthar finally looked at him. "Explain." Dexkar showed him the human wars, the weapons, the extinction records. "Commander, humans have spent their entire existence fighting. Not just other species, but each other. They have developed weapons that could destroy their own planet. They have killed billions of their own kind. And yet they continue to survive and grow stronger. What is your point, scholar?" "My point is that we may have made a mistake. We saw weak bodies and assumed weak spirits. But humans do not rely on their bodies. They rely on their minds. They create weapons. They adapt. They do whatever is necessary to survive. And, Commander, When I look at their history, I see something we have never encountered before. And what is that? A species that is very good at making things go extinct. Zekthar clicked his teeth in annoyance. You worry too much, Thexkar. Yes, humans have weapons. All spacefaring species have weapons. But we have seen their ships. We have tested their defenses. They are adequate, nothing more. They are not warriors like us. They are scientists and farmers and builders who play at war. But Commander, enough. Zekthar's voice was final. We are Catharak. We have conquered dozens of species. Some were stronger than humans. Some were more advanced. All of them fell. The humans will fall too. Now return to your studies and stop wasting my time with fears. Thexkar left the command chamber. He returned to his study and looked at the human files again. He hoped Zekthar was right. He hoped the humans would simply surrender like the Galactic Council advised. But deep in his mind, a doubt grew. Because there was one more thing Thexkar had found in the human files. It was a quote from an ancient human philosopher named Nietzsche. The translation was imperfect, but the meaning was clear. Beware then, when fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster. And if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you. Humans knew they had darkness inside them. They knew they were capable of terrible things. And they had words and philosophies warning themselves not to let that darkness out. The Catharak had just given humans a reason to let it out. Thexkar looked at the star maps showing the Catharak fleet's route to Earth. They would arrive in 3 months. He wondered what they would find when they got there. Would they find a species ready to surrender? Or would they find something else? Something that Earth's own history suggested was always there, waiting beneath the surface? He thought about all the species humans had driven to extinction. He thought about all the wars where humans had killed each other by the millions. He thought about nuclear weapons and biological weapons and all the terrible things humans had invented. And he realized something that made his scales tighten with an emotion he rarely felt. Fear. The Cathark were about to learn what humans became when someone hunted their children. Thexkar began preparing a secondary report, one that he would keep private until it was needed. A report on everything he had learned about human warfare. Because if Commander Zekthar was wrong, someone would need to know how to fight humans. Or more importantly, someone would need to know how to surrender to them. The Catharak invasion fleet moved through space like a school of metal sharks. 300 warships, the largest force the Catharak had ever assembled. Commander Zekthar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars slide past. In 2 weeks, they would reach Earth. In 2 weeks, the greatest hunt would begin. He did not know that the hunt had already started. And he was the prey. The attack came without warning. The Catharak sensors showed nothing, and then suddenly 3 ships appeared directly in front of the fleet. They looked like civilian transports, unarmed and helpless. Prey ships, Zekthos weapons officer said. Probably fleeing from Earth. Ignore them, Zekthar ordered. We are hunting bigger prey. But the civilian ships did not run. Instead, they accelerated directly toward the Catharak fleet. Zekthar realized what was happening 1 second before it was too late. Evasive action. He shouted. The first human ship struck a Catharak destroyer at full speed. The explosion was massive, far larger than it should have been. The ship had been packed with explosives. The destroyer and 2 nearby cruisers vanished in a ball of fire. The second human ship rammed a Catharak carrier. The third took out another destroyer before the Catharak could react. 5 ships destroyed in 30 seconds. By prey that should have been running away. Return fire, Zekthar commanded. Destroy all human vessels. But there were no more human vessels. Just the wreckage and the message. Humans would not fight fairly. Humans would not follow the rules of honorable combat. Humans would sacrifice themselves without hesitation. The fleet continued toward Earth, but now the Catharak were alert. Their sensors swept constantly for threats. Their weapons were charged and ready. They would not be surprised again. Except the next attack came from inside the fleet. A Catharak supply ship suddenly exploded. Then another. Then a troop transport. Zekthar demanded reports. His technical officers checked the ship's systems and found the cause. Nanomachines. Tiny machines smaller than dust particles had infiltrated the fleet, probably at their last resupply point. They had been dormant, undetectable. Now, they were active, eating through hull metal and power cores. The Catharak tried to purge the nanomachines, but they were designed to hide and multiply. Over the next 3 days, the fleet lost 40 ships to internal explosions. They had to spacewalk and physically scrape the hulls clean. It took a week of work, and all the while, they were sitting targets. But no more attacks came. The humans seemed to be waiting. When the fleet finally reached Earth's solar system, they were down to 240 ships. Still a massive force. Still more than enough to conquer one planet. Zekthar gave the order to advance. They made it as far as Mars when the human fleet appeared. It was smaller than expected. Maybe 80 ships. The Catharak outnumbered them 3-1. Zekthar smiled. Finally, a real battle. Finally, these prey would learn what it meant to face Catharak warriors in ship-to-ship combat. The battle began. Catharak weapons were powerful, designed to tear through shields and armor. But something was wrong. The human ships were faster than they should be, more maneuverable, and their weapons hit harder than the intelligence reports suggested. Then Zekthar realized the truth. The humans had been holding back. All those early battles at the colonies, the humans had not used their best technology. They had let the Catharak think they were weak while they prepared their real defenses. A Catharak battleship exploded as a human missile penetrated its shields. The missile should not have been able to do that. The shields should have stopped it. But the humans had studied Catharak technology from captured ships and found the weakness. Another Catharak ship died. Then another. The humans were not fighting like civilized species fought. They were not trying to disable ships and capture prisoners. They were going for kill shots. Every missile, every beam weapon, every attack was designed for maximum destruction. They fight like animals, one of Zekthar's officers said, shocked. No, Dexkar said quietly from his station. They fight like predators. The battle raged for 6 hours. The Catharak lost 50 ships. The humans lost 30. But the Catharak were supposed to be superior. They were supposed to be the greatest warriors. Instead, they were barely holding their own against a species that built gardens and wrote poetry. Then the humans did something unexpected. They retreated, not in panic, but in order. They fell back toward Earth, and the Catharak fleet pursued. Zekthar knew it might be a trap, but his pride would not let him stop. They had come here to hunt humans on their home world. They would not turn back now. As the fleet approached Earth, Zekthar saw why the humans had retreated. The planet was surrounded by defense platforms. Thousands of them. Weapon stations that had been built in secret while the Catharak thought humans were weak and unprepared. The platforms opened fire. The Catharak shields held, but barely. And then the human fleet turned around and attacked from behind. The Catharak were caught between the platforms and the ships, taking fire from all directions. Break through, Zekthar commanded. Get to the planet's surface. Our warriors are superior in ground combat. It was a costly decision. 30 more ships died breaking through the defenses. But eventually, drop pods began falling toward Earth. thousands of HFY warriors in armor, ready to hunt humans on their own world. But Earth was not like the colonies. The colonies had been small, unprepared, civilian. Earth was the human homeworld. 4 billion people, centuries of military history, and 3 months to prepare for this moment. The drop pods landed in designated zones that the HFY had selected. Open areas, good for hunting. The pods opened and the warriors emerged, ready for battle. The pods had landed in minefields. Explosions tore through the landing zones. Hundreds of HFY died before they took a single step. Those who survived found themselves under fire from weapons they could not see. Human snipers with rifles that could punch through HFY armor. Human drones that dropped explosives from above. Human soldiers who did not stand and fight honorably, but hid, ambushed, and killed from a distance. One HFY hunting pack made it to a human city. They expected to find prey hiding in fear. Instead, they found armed civilians. On Earth, many humans owned weapons. Many knew how to fight. The HFY had trained their whole lives for combat, but humans had been fighting each other for thousands of years. They knew every dirty trick, every ambush tactic, every way to kill something bigger and stronger than themselves. The hunting pack lasted 20 minutes. Back in orbit, Zekthar watched his invasion fail. This was not how it was supposed to happen. The HFY were the predators. The humans were the prey. But the prey had teeth. The prey had venom. The prey had turned the hunt around. "Commander," his communication officer said, voice shaking. "We are receiving a transmission from Earth, from their military command." "Play it," Zekthar said. A human appeared on the screen. A female with gray hair and cold eyes. She wore a military uniform with more medals than Zekthar had ever seen on one person. "I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Coalition," she said. Her voice was calm, almost pleasant. "You came to our colonies. You hunted our people. You killed our children. You broadcast it as entertainment." She paused. "Did you enjoy the show?" Zekthar said nothing. "You made a mistake," Admiral Chen continued. "You thought we were prey because we do not have claws, because we do not have armor or fangs. You looked at us and saw weakness." She leaned forward. "Let me tell you what we see when we look at you. We see things that need to die. And humans are very, very good at making things die." The transmission ended. Zekthar looked at his remaining forces. Half his fleet was destroyed. His ground forces were being wiped out. The humans had not just defended themselves. They had crushed the HFY invasion with contemptuous ease. "Commander," Zekthar said softly, "I recommend we retreat. We have underestimated the humans. We need to regroup and develop new strategies." Zekthar wanted to argue, wanted to say they would prevail, but he could not. The evidence was clear. The HFY had thought they were hunting prey. Instead, they had walked into the territory of a predator that had been pretending to be harmless. "Signal the fleet," Zekthar said, the words like poison in his mouth. "We retreat." But as the HFY ships turned away from Earth, Admiral Chen sent one more message. It was broadcast to the entire HFY fleet and to the Galactic Council and to every species that was watching. "You are running now," she said. "That is wise. But understand this, we are not done. You came to our home. You hurt our people. Now we are coming to yours. Run fast, HFY, because humans are persistent predators. We do not stop. We do not forgive. And we always catch our prey." The Galactic Council met in emergency session. Representatives from 40 species gathered in the Great Chamber, their voices overlapping in dozens of languages, all translated in real time. They were talking about the humans. "This is unprecedented," the Delari ambassador said, his crystalline body reflecting the chamber lights. "The humans have not just defended themselves. They're launching a counterattack." "Against the Catharic," the Morphin representative added, her color shifting to nervous purple. "No one attacks the Catharic. No one survives attacking the Catharic." The Council had watched the Battle of Earth. They had seen the Catharic invasion fleet broken and scattered. It was shocking, but they had assumed that would be the end. The humans had defended their home. Honor was satisfied. The conflict would end with negotiations and treaties. But the humans had other plans. Admiral Chun stood before the Council via hologram. Behind her, through the window of her flagship, the Council representatives could see a fleet. Not the defensive fleet from Earth. A new fleet, bigger, more heavily armed. And all of it was moving toward Catharic space. "Admiral Chun," the Council speaker said carefully, "we are pleased that Earth successfully defended itself. The Council is prepared to mediate a peace treaty. The Catharic have agreed to pay reparations for their attacks on your colonies." "We do not want reparations," Admiral Chun said. "Then what do you want?" "Justice." The word hung in the air. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The Delari ambassador spoke again. "Admiral, we understand you are angry. What the Catharic did was terrible. But continuing this war will only lead to more death. The Catharic Empire is vast. They have hundreds of worlds, billions of warriors. Even with your impressive technology, you cannot hope to conquer them all." "We do not need to conquer them all," Admiral Chun said. "We only need to make them extinct." Silence fell over the council chamber. The representatives looked at each other in shock. Extinction was not a word that civilized species used. Wars were fought over territory, over resources, over politics. But species did not try to make other species extinct. That was barbaric. That was something from the ancient past, before civilization. "Admiral," the council speaker said slowly, "are you saying that humanity intends to commit genocide against the Catharic species?" "I am saying that humanity intends to ensure the Catharic never hunt anyone ever again. The exact method is still being determined." The council erupted in protests and arguments. The humans could not do this. It violated every treaty, every law, every principle of galactic civilization. They had to be stopped. But who would stop them? Who would stand against a species that had just shattered the Catharic, the greatest military power in the galaxy? No one volunteered. Admiral Chun waited for the noise to die down. Then she continued. "The council told us to surrender, to accept harvesting quotas, to let the Catharic hunt our children for sport. You told us this was the natural order of things." She looked at each representative in turn. "Where were your laws then? Where were your treaties? Where was galactic civilization when our colonies burned?" The council speaker had no answer. "We do not expect the council to help us," Admiral Chun said. "We do not even expect you to approve. But we do expect you to stay out of our way. Because if you try to protect the Catharic, we will go through you too." The hologram ended. The council sat in shocked silence. Finally, the Delari ambassador spoke. "What have we done? We told them to be like prey. We told them to accept being hunted. And now they have shown us that humans are not prey. They are something much worse." Meanwhile, the human fleet entered Catharic space. Admiral Chun stood on her flagship bridge, watching the tactical displays. The fleet had been joined by ships from the colonies, by volunteers, by anyone who wanted to see the Catharic pay for what they had done. "First target is the industrial world of Kraftar," her tactical officer reported. "Heavy defenses. Population of 2 billion Catharic. Any civilians?" "Commander, they are all warriors. K-Thorak society does not distinguish between military and civilian. Every adult is trained to fight. Admiral Chun nodded slowly. She had read the reports, had studied K-Thorak culture. They were a society built entirely around hunting and war. Every K-Thorik who had watched the broadcasts from New Terra, everyone who had enjoyed watching humans die, they were all complicit. Deploy the biological weapons, she ordered. The payload was released into Krothar's atmosphere. It was not designed to kill quickly. It was designed to make them suffer. The virus attacked K-Thorak specifically, targeting their armored skin. Within hours, every K-Thorak on the planet was in agony. Their greatest protection had become their greatest weakness. Their armor plates became hypersensitive, turning the slightest touch into torture. The human fleet broadcast the results back to K-Thorak space. A message. This is what happens when you hunt humans. The Galactic Council sent more desperate messages. This was a war crime. This violated the conventions of civilized warfare. Humanity had to stop. Admiral Chun's response was simple. We are following the K-Thorak rules now. They taught us that might makes right, that the strong take what they want, that the weak exist to be hunted. We are simply better students than they expected. The human fleet moved to the next K-Thorak world. And the next. They did not land troops. They did not try to conquer. They simply destroyed. Biological weapons, atmospheric manipulation, targeted strikes on infrastructure. Some worlds they left intact but isolated, cutting off their supplies until they starved. Others they rendered completely uninhabitable. On Earth, there were protests. Some humans argued that this was wrong, that they were becoming monsters. That genocide was never acceptable, even against a species that had committed genocide against humans. But the majority supported Admiral Chun. They had seen the broadcasts from New Terra. They had seen their people hunted. They had lost friends, family, children. The K-Thorak had started this war by declaring that humans were prey. Now humans were showing them what real predators looked like. In K-Thorak space, panic spread. Commander Zekthar tried to rally his forces, but it was hopeless. The K-Thorak were warriors, yes. They were strong and brave and skilled. But they were not prepared for this kind of war. A war where the enemy did not face you in honorable combat. A war where weapons struck from orbit, invisible and unstoppable. A war where your greatest strengths were turned into weaknesses. Zekthar watched it all from his study. He had tried to warn them, had tried to make them understand that humans were different. But no one had listened. And now his species was paying the price. He received a secret message on an encrypted channel. It was from Admiral Chun herself. War Scholar Zekthar, the message said. I have read your reports on human warfare. I know you tried to warn your people. I am offering you a chance. Defect to humanity. Bring us the location of K-Thorak military installations, breeding worlds, and leadership. In exchange, we will spare some of your people. Refuse, and we will eradicate every K-Thorak in the galaxy. Zekthar stared at the message for a long time. To defect was to betray his species. To refuse was to watch them all die. He thought about the broadcasts from New Terra, about the human children the K-Thorak had hunted, about the laughter and entertainment, about how his people had taken pride in their cruelty. He thought about the Dalari, the Morphin, the Tresh, all the species the K-Thorak had conquered and hunted over the centuries, all the death and suffering his people had caused. And he thought about the quote from the human philosopher, about not becoming a monster while fighting monsters. The humans had become monsters. They were doing terrible things. But they had not started this. They were only responding in the language the K-Thorak had taught them. Zekthar made his decision. He sent a reply to Admiral Chun. I will help you, but I have conditions. Some Catharak must survive. The young ones who have never hunted. The ones who can learn a different way. And the humans must promise to stop once the Catharak military is destroyed. Do not make my entire species extinct. Admiral Chun's response came quickly. Agreed. Send us the coordinates. And Dexcar, thank you. You may have just saved your species. Dexcar uploaded everything. Every military base. Every weapons facility. Every location where the Catharak leadership was hiding. And the human fleet moved with terrible efficiency. Within 2 months, the Catharak military was destroyed. Their fleets were scattered debris. Their warriors were dead or captured. Their empire was in ruins. Only then did the humans stop. They had not exterminated the Catharak, but they had broken them completely. The message to the galaxy was clear. Humans could be friends. Humans could be allies. Humans could be peaceful and kind and generous. But if you hunted them, if you hurt their children, if you made them into prey, then humans would show you what they really were underneath all that civilization. They were Earth's apex predators, and they had never forgotten how to hunt. The human fleet surrounded Tethor Prime, the Catharak homeworld. 8 billion Catharak lived on the planet below. Warriors, scholars, young ones who had never participated in a hunt, elders who had hunted for centuries. All of them waiting to see what the humans would do. Commander Zekthar was down there somewhere. He had survived the war, barely. Most of his hunting fleet was gone. Most of the Catharak military was destroyed. And now he waited with his people for judgment. On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Chun received a message from Catharak leadership. It was an unconditional surrender. They offered everything. Territory, resources, technology. They would execute their war leaders. They would pay reparations for 1,000 years. They would submit to any terms humanity demanded. They were begging for mercy. Admiral Chun read the surrender terms. Her officers stood silent around her, waiting for orders. Outside the window, the fleet waited. Thousands of ships. Millions of crew members. All of them ready to fire on her command. She thought about New Terra, about the broadcasts of humans being hunted, about Sarah Chun and her daughter Maya, who had died in that emergency shelter when Commander Zekthar found them. Sarah Chun was her niece. Maya was her great-niece. She had watched them die on the broadcast, helpless to save them. The Galactic Council was sending frantic messages. They were offering to guarantee the surrender, to supervise the Catharak, to ensure they never hunted again. They were promising anything if the humans would just show mercy. Admiral Chun made her decision. Prepare the quantum weapon, she ordered. Her officers hesitated. The quantum weapon was humanity's darkest creation. It did not destroy. It did something worse. It isolated an entire planet in a localized time dilation field. From outside, time passed normally. But inside the field, time moved 1,000 times slower. The Catharak would live out their lives. They would age and die naturally. But for every year they experienced, 1,000 years would pass for the rest of the galaxy. It was a prison that lasted millennia. A punishment that made extinction almost merciful by comparison. Admiral, her second-in-command, said carefully, "If we use this weapon, there will be no going back. The Council will condemn us. Other species will fear us. We will be seen as monsters." "Yes," Admiral Chun said. "We will be. Then why do it? The Catharak have surrendered. We have won. We can show mercy and prove we are better than them." Admiral Chun looked at her officer. He was young, had not lost anyone in the Catharak hunts. He still believed in ideals like mercy and forgiveness. "You are right. she said. We should be better than them. We should show mercy. She paused. But there are 8 billion Tarek down there. And if we let them live, if we let them rebuild, what happens in 100 years? In 200? They will remember that they lost a war. They will remember that humans defeated them. And eventually, they will want revenge. They will rebuild their fleets. They will come hunting again. Maybe not us. Maybe our children or grandchildren. But they will come. We can prevent that. We can supervise them, control them. Can we? Forever? Because that is what it would take. The Galactic Council could not control the Catharak. What makes you think we can? Admiral Chun shook her head. No, we have one chance to ensure this never happens again. One chance to make certain that no species ever hunts humans for sport. And that requires sending a message so clear, so absolute, that no one will ever mistake it. She activated the fleet-wide communication. This is Admiral Chun to all ships. The Catharak came to our colonies. They hunted our people. They killed our children and broadcasted as entertainment. They showed no mercy. They felt no remorse. They believed they were predators and we were prey. Her voice hardened. Today we show them the truth. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you hunt humanity. Fire the quantum weapon. The weapon launched from the flagship. It was a small device, no bigger than a shuttle. It fell toward Cathara Prime like a silver tear. When it reached the upper atmosphere, it activated. Reality bent around Cathara Prime. Space-time twisted. The planet did not disappear, did not explode. It simply slowed down. From space, it looked normal. But anyone who tried to approach it would find themselves unable to reach it. Any message sent to it would take 1,000 years to arrive from the Catharak perspective. The planet was isolated, cut off from the galaxy, a living monument to the price of hunting humans. Admiral Chun broadcast a message to the remaining Catharak colonies, to the survivors, to the young ones who Dexcar had vouched for. Your homeworld still exists, she said. Your people still live. But they are removed from this galaxy for the next 1,000,000 years. They chose to hunt us. This is the consequence. She paused. The rest of you have a choice. You can live peacefully under supervision. You can build new lives, new cultures. Or you can seek revenge for what we have done. But know this, if any Catharak ever harms a human again, we will do to all of you what we did to Cathar Prime. We will erase you from the present and lock you in the past. The Catharak colonies surrendered immediately. They had no choice. Their military was destroyed. Their homeworld was gone. And they had finally learned what Dexcar tried to tell them from the beginning. Humans were not prey. The Galactic Council condemned humanity's actions. They called it barbaric. They called it excessive. They said humanity had become the very monsters they claimed to fight against. But the Council also did something else. They quietly updated their laws. Hunting sentient species was now punishable by complete sanctions and military intervention. The rights of prey species were strengthened. Protections were put in place. Because the Council had learned something too. They had learned that there was something worse than a predator species in the galaxy. There was a prey species that refused to stay prey. A species that would burn down the world before it let itself be hunted. Earth returned to normal life. The fleet came home. Parades were held. Memorials were built for those who died. Sarah Chun and her daughter Maya were remembered as heroes, martyrs who had given humanity the resolve to fight back. Admiral Chun retired. She had done what was necessary, but it had taken something from her. She had become what the Catharak thought humans were. A predator, a killer, a monster. She spent her remaining years working with the young Catharak who had been spared. teaching them, helping them build a new culture, one based on cooperation instead of hunting, on building instead of destroying. It was slow work, hard work. Many Catharak could not let go of their old ways and had to be contained. But some learned, some changed, some became something new. Vexkar became the leader of the new Catharak civilization. He wrote books about the war, about what his species had done wrong, about what they had learned. His most famous book was titled The Day We Became Prey. In it, he wrote, "We thought strength came from claws and teeth and armor. We thought we were superior because we were natural predators. But we learned that true strength comes from intelligence, adaptability, and the will to survive. The humans had all of that. And when we pushed them, when we threatened their children, they showed us that they had one more thing, something we had never encountered before. They had the ability to be more ruthless than any natural predator could ever be, because their ruthlessness came not from instinct, but from choice. And that made them the most dangerous species in the galaxy." Years passed, decades, a century. The Catharak, under Vexkar's leadership, slowly earned limited freedom. They were allowed to trade, to travel under supervision, to participate in galactic society in restricted ways. And then a new species made first contact with humanity. They were called the Vrex. They were aggressive, militaristic. They looked at humanity's limited military presence in their sector and saw weakness. They made preparations to invade. They gathered intelligence. They planned their attack. And then their diplomats received a package from the Galactic Council. Inside was a recording. The Battle of Earth. The destruction of the Catharak fleet. The use of the quantum weapon on Cathara Prime. And a note. "These are humans. They appear peaceful. They appear weak. They are neither. If you attack them, this is your future. Choose wisely." The Vrex watched the recordings. They saw the Catharak invasion fleet broken. They saw the biological weapons. They saw an entire planet removed from time. They saw Admiral Chun's cold eyes as she gave the order. The Vrex diplomats arrived at Earth 1 month later. They brought gifts. They brought trade agreements. They brought proposals for scientific cooperation and cultural exchange. They did not bring weapons. When asked why they were so eager to be friends with humanity, the Vrex ambassador was honest. "We studied the Catharak. They were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. They had conquered dozens of species. They were stronger, faster, better armed than humans. And you destroyed them." The ambassador paused. "We are warriors, yes. We are not fools. We understand the difference between prey that runs and prey that fights back. You taught the galaxy that humans are not prey. You taught them that hunting humans is suicide. We would rather be your friends than learn that lesson the hard way." Admiral Chun, now in her 90s, met with the Vrex ambassador. She shook his hand, a human gesture of peace. And she said something that would become famous throughout the galaxy. "We do not want to be monsters.